What you want?
And we're back, high top, Jordan Hall in Studio 218. It is segment 2 for Week 2 on Project Pate. It's time to talk some college football. Week 5 in the books, and with that, we bring in Greg Allen. Greg Allen, hit me with your first point. What did you take away from Week 5?
I got Clemson going into Lane Stadium and putting it on Virginia Tech. You know, we both sat here last week, and I believe you.
I don't really remember saying anything about Clemson last week.
I believe you said Clemson was going to be like a bug on a windshield.
I expected a close game as far as I remember.
They went up and shut down the ruckus environment with and held.
You said ruckus last week, though. I can tell you that. And it's still raucous.
Well, it's ruckus. It's all the same.
It's not.
Well, to me it is. Anyways, the defense went up there and held Virginia Tech to 3 points. I knew the offense would be there, but I thought Virginia Tech would score a little more than 3 points on Clemson's defense.
Will they win the ACC?
They got a forgiving schedule coming up, but they have Georgia Tech and UNC at home, and they go to Georgia Tech. If they can get by Georgia Tech,
they don't.
I believe.
Let me just ruin the ending for you. They don't. Meanwhile, Texas A&M collapses for a second straight week. Okay, last week, catch this, they were down 20-3 at halftime to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State comes back and beats them at home. This week, they're up 35-17 on Arkansas. You figure, lesson learned from last week. Absolutely not. They score a grand total of 3 points in the second half after compiling over 400 yards of total offense in the first half alone, and they go down to the Pigs. Now, Greg, they're going to come
let me stop you. How does Texas A&M think they're going to come in and compete in the SEC after blowing 2 leads like that?
I would love to have finished my sentence because I was going to say, Greg, how does Texas A&M expect to come into the SEC and compete if they can't do it 1 week? I mean, in the SEC, you know what you do after you play Arkansas?
Well, you got to play Bama, LSU, Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn. I mean, hello, Florida, South Carolina. It's not going to stop. It's not going to get any easier for Texas A&M. Their best bet would be either to go to the Pac-12 or to stay in the Big 8, as it would be right now.
What about maybe like Conference USA or Sun Belt? Those are options too. Hit me with your second point.
Alabama is very good. Going into the swamp this weekend with a quarterback, A.J. McCarron, with limited experience, just coming in and wrestling the Gators and holding them down and just saying, here it is, and hitting them in the mouth on defense and taking Jeff Brantley out. Who knows when we're going to see him back? But Alabama is a very good team, and I look for them to win the West and be my national champion.
In 2009, Alabama had one of the best defense, probably the best defense in the country, but there were a lot of Mike Shula players on that defense. Those were, to me, a lot of overachievers who maximized their potential and bought into what Nick Saban and his staff had brought to Alabama. What you have here is 11 NFL players on defense, and when you combine discipline and elite talent, it is scary, and Alabama's defense looks scary right now.
I'm going to tell you, 5 first-rounders are on that side of the ball. And then not to mention you got Trent Richardson on the offensive side. I mean, you got legitimately 6 NFL players within the top 2 rounds on the field. Not to mention you got somebody like Marquise Mays as a returner. I mean, Alabama, like you just said, some of those guys were Mike Shula's players. These players are Nick Saban's players, and they are coached the Nick Saban way. And I look for Alabama. That LSU game is looming, but I look for them to just take LSU out.
It really looks like after LSU clears that Florida hurdle this week, which will be much easier without Jeff Brantley, who was knocked out by Courtney Upshaw, it looks like there are probably no major hurdles to clear. And we're looking at an undefeated number 1, number 2 matchup in Tuscaloosa November 5th. You talk about Alabama, that's a very disciplined team. They don't make a lot of mistakes. The polar opposite of that would be about 200 miles to the east in South Carolina. There's nothing you can say about quarterback Stephen Garcia other than he is everything that you hope never to see at the quarterback position for your program.
His own head coach can't stand him, and he calls the quarterback draw just hoping he gets lit up.
It's literally a win-win. When Stephen Garcia takes off past the line of scrimmage running, and you look at Steve Spurrier, it is a win-win for him. It's either going to be a first down or the guy he hates the most on his team, which is his starting quarterback, is going to get knocked out of the game. It's become that bad in Columbia.
What can you do? You got Alshon Jeffrey, who is a number 1 main threat wide receiver for them. How can you not get him the ball? You saw early in the game against Auburn, I mean, just throw it up to the man. And Garcia can't even do that. Hand the ball off to Lattimore. I mean, 13 points against an Auburn defense who a week earlier gave up 62% of Florida Atlantic's total offense on the year. I mean, it's ridiculous.
When you look at South Carolina. They come into the beginning of the season as the favorite in the East. The picture initially was already kind of muddy. You don't know what you're going to get from Florida. Georgia's got an easier schedule, but you've got a lot of uncertainty on that team too. Now, we're 5 weeks in. It looks like the SEC East is the same old SEC East again. 2 or 3 losses may win you this conference, but Georgia, as we said, has a much easier path. Does this open them up, especially with the injuries at Florida and South Carolina being in a tailspin? Do the Bulldogs have the easiest road to Atlanta now?
A big game this week and a big test will be against Tennessee with the Dogs traveling up there. Tennessee's
not an easy place to play for them historically.
Not an easy place. The past 2 times, Georgia's been throttled going up there. I look for them to get the ball to Isaiah Crowell. Aaron Murray had 3 picks last weekend, but getting back to the East, it's wide open.
Yeah.
And who wants to win it? It looks like nobody wants to win it because I believe those teams, they're not scared, but I believe those teams do not want to play LSU or Alabama in the SEC title game in Atlanta. And I wouldn't either. I mean, you look at it like this. You got 2 NFL defenses in LSU and Alabama, and you got some skeptical offenses in the East. Stephen Garcia at quarterback at South Carolina, Aaron Murray in Georgia. And then you got who knows, Jeff Brantley, Jeff Driscoll at Florida.
And if there's one thing that'll kill you, it's having a skeptical offense. That's for sure. Give me your top 5 for this week. You had LSU at number 1 last week, as did I. Does the win at Florida jump Alabama over LSU?
Alabama jumps LSU this week into the number 1 spot. They go to the Swamp. They take care of Florida, routinely. I mean, just made them look like a Conference USA team.
After it should be noted, Florida gets up 7-0 to start the game.
Alabama's defense is just too good in my eyes, and their offense is starting to come along when you got Trent Richardson just handing the ball. Number 2, LSU. They went on the road 3 times, had 3 big road wins here early in the season. Not a big test this weekend against Florida because I believe Brantley's going to be out. It's already said he's out, so they'll have fresh meat in there at quarterback. 3, Oklahoma, Landry Jones. I like Landry Jones at Oklahoma. They got a big game against Texas this weekend. Number 4, Clemson. All right, Clemson had a big win last weekend against Virginia Tech. I like the way they played. You got the old Dabo Swinney as the old ball coach up there.
Do you believe in this team now? Do you believe in them now?
I believe it right now. Now, that game against Georgia Tech on October 29th, we'll see a little more. And number 5, I have Wisconsin, who absolutely throttled Nebraska this weekend. Of course, it's Big Ten football, but Wisconsin, Russell Wilson in Big Ten, in the Big Ten play is going to be the difference for them. And looking at their schedule, I believe that they're going to win the Big Ten and possibly play for a national title game.
We may have to go on location to the Georgia Tech-Clemson game because I don't appreciate that you're still not buying into the Yellow Jackets. They won yet again. I got Alabama number 1 for the same reasons. Just to me, if I had to pick one team in the country that I think is better than everyone else, it would be Alabama. LSU number 2, once again, that debate will be settled on the field. Not a big deal. I think that's why Wisconsin and Oklahoma fans, especially Oklahoma, who started the season number 1 and has been bumped down 2 weeks now after winning, and winning impressively, I got Wisconsin number 3 and Oklahoma number 4, and like I was saying, there's really no reason to worry because number 1 and number 2, that'll sort itself out on November 5th. Number 5, Georgia Tech. They're still impressing me. Apparently a lot more than you, but they're still impressing me. And I think that game against Clemson, obviously now with recent developments in Virginia Tech not being nearly the team that we thought, or specifically I thought that they were, that has major ACC title implications. Now, it could be argued that no ACC title implications are major because the conference has been a doormat for the past, like half decade. But Georgia Tech, maybe even Clemson, it looks more and more like maybe they could pose a threat, at least a threat, to some of these top teams. And
Clemson does just because they have more of a pro-style offense. Georgia Tech, I know it's hard to get ready for their attack, but, I don't see the triple option beating very many big boy football teams. I mean, good coach defenses. And real quick on Oklahoma and Wisconsin, they kind of switch places this year. Oklahoma doesn't have to play a conference title game this year. So that may be big in their favor too, whereas Wisconsin's going to have to play a Big Ten title game and that may hurt them a little more there towards the end of the season.
Should be interesting. Good segment this week. I like what you brought. How did you get that microphone though?
Stole it from my good buddy Dano. He threw it up here.
See you back next week?
I'll be here.
All righty. Maggie Reese in just a second.
What you want?